So with the drawing up of the borders at the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885, it led to a lot of tribal splitting in Africa, which downstream has led to most of the civil skirmishes that you hear about today, whether it's the war between the M23 rebels and the Congolese government in Congo today. You hear about wars with the Tutsis and the Hutus in Rwanda, or rather the massacre. You hear about all of the civil wars that happened in Uganda. You hear about the rebellions of the Tuaregs in the Sahel and in the Maghreb. All of that is as a result of tribal groups just being split and them having to figure out how to work around these new lines that were drawn by a bunch of clueless Europeans. So the first tribe that I'm going to highlight here is the Lunda tribe, which was split between the DRC, Congo, Angola, and Zambia. The second group that I'm going to highlight is the Lozi. They were split between Namibia, Angola, Zambia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. The third group that I'm going to highlight is the Tonga. And this is a very interesting one, because this happened as a result of the British colonial administration at the time wanting to build the Kariba Dam, because the place where the Kariba Dam exists now used to be a valley where the Tonga people lived. But in order for the British colonial administration to create the Kariba Dam, they had to displace these people. There was about 53,000 Tonga people at the time. 21,000 were taken to the Zimbabwean side, and about 22,000 were taken to the Zambian side. And then you have the Bemba, who were obviously split between Congo, Zambia, and some parts of Tanzania as well. You've got the Chewas, the Nguni, and the Tumbuka, who were split between Malawi, Zambia, and Tanzania. And then you've obviously got the Tuareg, who were split between Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Algeria. Now, the number of tribes that were split across different borderlines is endless. Okay, Africa on its own already has about 2,000 indigenous groups. It's got over 2,000 languages that are spoken. So in order for me to highlight all of the different tribes that may have been split across borderlines would take days upon days. I think that might maybe warrant its own episode at some point. But that was just to highlight a few of them, so you can have an idea of how random and arbitrary the way that these lines were being drawn was. So now I wanted to get to why these borders kind of still exist today, because we've established when they were drawn, why they were drawn, and how they were drawn. So we obviously have all of these tribes that have been split across all of these countries. So that begs the question, why are all of these borders still existing in the way that they're existing? Especially because on paper, most if not all African countries are free from colonialism, or at least we're supposed to think that. So the reason that all of these countries have the borders that they have, which were basically drawn at the time of the scramble for Africa, is because of an organization called the OAU, and that stands for the Organization of African Unity. Now, the OAU is an African intergovernmental organization that was established in May of 1963. In Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And its aim was to basically encourage political and economic integration amongst the signatory states, or the member states rather. At the time of its establishment, there were, I believe, 33 signatory governments. And so, their aim is to encourage economic and political integration amongst all these African countries, and to also eradicate colonialism and neocolonialism in Africa. How well they've done in encouraging the eradication of colonialism and neocolonialism is subject to opinion. Personally, I don't think they've done a very good job at doing that. I think they're agents of neocolonialism to some extent, but that's a topic for another day. So this organization at its establishment had a charter. And so at the first ordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and the government of the OAU, the principle of respecting African borders existing on national independence was enshrined in the charter of the OAU. And this happened in July of 1964 in Cairo, Egypt. And basically what that means is that the OAU said to themselves, or to the signatory governments, to say, the borders that exist within a country at the time that it achieves independence are the ones that will be kept. Now, to my understanding, the intent behind this was to basically reduce any likelihood of skirmishes between different countries, to reduce the likelihood of fragmentation of African countries, and to basically make it so that there wouldn't be a lot of civil war that happens within countries when they attain independence. And for the most part, they did succeed in doing that. I do believe that if it became a free-for-all for any region of any country to secede, there would be a lot of civil war in Africa happening still. But yeah, that's basically the reason behind why the borders that existed at the time of colonialism still exist today, is because of the OAU.